Hey guys, how's it going? MrPantaloons 1 here, and in this video I'm gonna show you a party guide about my characters, obviously, and this is pre-level 7. As you can see, all my characters are level 6 here. Now I should first state that when I created this party, I was looking for variety, so I wanted to make sure that I cover all the skills with my party. Unfortunately, I did not know that, well, pretty much I didn't know our two companions here. Fortunately for me, Johan, for instance, had Aerothird and Hydrosophist, something that I wanted. But Medora had Man-at-Arms, and she's basically a knight, just like Roderick here. So I didn't know that I would be getting a knight and a mage based on air and water spells. Or otherwise I would have made a different character instead of the knight male here, Roderick. But anyway, let's get into the basics. So with Roderick here, he has Battering Ram, Crushing Fist, Cure Wounds, Dust Devil and Encourage. So I got Cure Wounds, which is a pretty much a one-time heal during combat, which just fills up your HP bar right away. So it heals for 204, and I can use it on nearby allies as well. The only downside is the cooldown, which is 20 turns, and the low range. Target must be within 3 meters, but it's really useful to use on yourself. So that's why I have this, and I can also use it on Medora because they are both melee, so they're most likely gonna be close together. So I think this is really good. Then we got Battering Ram. Now Battering Ram is a really useful spell. Rush forward in a straight line to a point far away, so we can pretty much charge to any place, and you can rush up to 15 meters away. Now the cooldown is a bit high, cooldown 8 turns, but usually it is worth it because it deals a decent amount of damage. It is AoE, of course, because you will hit everyone on your path, and it also has a 60% chance to set knockdown status. Or yeah, well, I'm having 60% right now because of my high strength. As you can see down there, you get 10% from high strength, but normally you still get 50% chance to set knockdown status. And if you can clump up your enemies or charge from such a position that you can hit at least 2 or more, 2, 3 is generally good, you may end up knocking them down just using one ability. So with one ability you can end up having 3 people knocked down and have them damaged at the same time. So that is really useful. And since I already have Battering Ram with Medora as well, I can do this twice. So if there are 3 targets close together, I can use Battering Ram twice, and that gives me a very good chance that I'm gonna knock all 3 of them, or at least 2. So that's really good. Now once I do this, there's another catch to this strategy. So I use Battering Ram, I knock them down, and then because I have the Bully talent, I gain 50% extra damage against knockdown. So this is a really strong combo. I can deal a ton of damage by using this combo. Now on Roderick I've also picked Dust Devil, which honestly is not that great. It has a 5-turn cooldown. It does decent damage, but generally you can do more single target damage, so you have to pick and choose. So if there are 2 enemies next to you, you will deal more damage by using Dust Devil, but it will be you know, it will be halved because you're gonna deal damage to both, right? You're not gonna focus all your attention, all your action points to one guy, because for attacking single target costs 4 action points, and using this is 6 action points, so you're most likely not gonna be able to use Dust Devil and strike by doing a 4 action points move.
Well, hello there.
So most of the time you're gonna have to pick and choose between either attacking someone twice or using this ability. And it has a decent range, but most of the time you're not gonna be able to use this efficiently. You maybe wanna use it when there are 3 enemies, but I kinda regret picking this skill up. So I wouldn't really recommend this. I would actually recommend Crushing Fist, which is an enormous fist that deals damage, crushing damage, and knocks them down with a 100% knockdown status chance at earlier levels. And the thing is, this thing has a 15 meters range, so it can start right from the beginning of the battle. You can just use Crushing Fist and you will knock them down, and then you can just go to them, or I don't know, do something else while they are knocked down. And when they get back up, you can just battering ram them again and knock them down, and by then they are already pretty boned. Staff of Magus, I haven't really needed to use that. Actually, I haven't used it at all on my melee characters. Then I've also picked Encourage, which honestly is not that great, but I mean, sometimes there is nothing else to do. You can't really do anything with your other abilities. Maybe you've already used Crushing Fist and it is on cooldown, so I need to do something, right? I can't just sit and do nothing. So I can use Encourage instead, which has a pretty high range. So it has, I mean, a pretty long range, 50 meters range, as you can see right here. And it will basically give +1 strength, +1 dexterity, and +1 intelligence. So it boosts damage a little bit. The bad part of it, however, is that it lasts for only 2 turns. So I'm gonna cast it right here, so you see only 2 turns. So that's a pretty big downside. If it would have been 3 turns, would have been pretty useful, but on 2 turns it's kinda meh. And it also has a 10 turns cooldown, costs 5 action points, so it's pretty costly to use. I tend to use some scrolls though. Right now I don't know which scrolls I have, but I can use some resistance scrolls, maybe some summon elemental scrolls, which I don't have right now because I've used them already. But yeah, that's pretty much Roderick. Then I got Scarlet over here, which is pretty powerful. So I got 4 fire spells, I got 4 geomancer spells, and 2 witchcraft spells. So right off the bat I got Flare because it's a range ability, so 15 meter range. It does a lot of fire damage. It is very useful against undead, obviously, and it also can burn targets. So it has 100% chance to set worm status. Once they are in worm status, the next fire spell you cast will set them on fire, so they're gonna take damage over time. So that's really useful. Then I took Midnight Oil, which slows characters, and even the slow is pretty useful because it really hinders the action that they can take. And if you can hit at least 2 people, you're gonna do really well. And it also has a very low cost. It only costs 3 action points. But the thing is, you can even say, let's get Johan over here, or no, let's get Roderick. If I put Roderick in here, come on, okay, there we go, and I fire. Sure, I can use Flare to set it on fire. However, there's another trick. I can use this for 3 action points. Now Flare would cost me 6 action points, so that would be 9 action points to cost a combo. So that is quite expensive, and most of the time you're not going to be able to do it. However, I can do a Staff of Magus, which is just 4 action points. And let's see, yep, there it is. It doesn't always cause it to get on fire, but most of the time it does. And that, as you can see, deals quite a lot of damage. So you can do this combo by using 3 + 4, 7 action points. Okay, next up I got a summon pet. This is a summon spider. It pretty much, actually, let's see. So it has a 10-meter radius and he can be alive for 5 turns, I believe. Yep, there it is, 5 turns. Now the spider is really useful. He's actually quite resilient. He has a decent amount of HP. He has pretty good resistances. He is immune to poison, so if there is some enemy that has poison damage, he will pretty much be immune to any attacks against that enemy. He can attack twice in a turn if he is close to the enemy. So he's pretty good. Yep, not much else to say. It costs 6 action points, so that pretty much means that you'll be able to cast him right away. Or you can initiate battle with him if you so desire, so you can cast him right in front of an enemy. But that sometimes doesn't work, because if you're gonna do that, they're gonna focus him down and he's gonna die really fast. So you gotta be careful when and how you're gonna summon him. But it also has a 2 turns cooldown, so you pretty much can have him up all the time. Next up I got a small fireball, which is an advanced spell. It is a level 5 spell. However, this is really useful. Even if you hit just one guy, you still do a ton of damage. It deals 70 to 85, whereas my flare deals 51 to 57. So even if you hit just one, you deal a ton of damage. Now it also has 50% chance to set burning status. And let's see if we can pull it off here. There it is. So it creates around the center, it creates this pool of fiery death. So you gotta keep in mind how you gotta be careful how you aim it, so that you get that burning area below the most enemies possible. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Downsides on this is that it has a 6 turn cooldown and it requires 7 action points. But man, does it feel good when you hit a cluster of enemies. You just wreck them. And you can even knock them down, I believe, if they fail their roll. Next up I got Wildfire. This is a buff pretty much, so I can buff Roderick, for example. So now he's warm and hasted. So it costs 6 action points, so I gotta be careful when I wanna use this, because if I use it I pretty much can't do anything else. So it gives maximum AP, starting AP and recover AP, and also boost movement. This is a pretty standard haste buff. So when I can't really deal any damage, or I already have someone summoned, or I'm dealing with some enemies that are resistant to fire, I might just wanna buff someone, you know? So I can do that. How much? I think that lasts for 3 turns. Yep, that lasts 3 turns. And a cool thing I can do, I don't know if I can cast it on myself, I think I can. Haste the target. I'm not sure if I can cast it on herself, but I can cast it on Jahan, which is the other mage in the party, and then he'll be able to cast more spells. So I can do that instead. Then we got Fortify, which creates a magical armor. It costs 6 action points, so again it's pretty costly. Has 55 turn cooldown, range 12 meters, but it gives 65 armor. So when I want a tank, or when I want Roderick just to survive, I just cast this on him, and he is a freaking man of rock. He's a freaking statue when I cast this on him. How much does it last? 3 turns, or was it 5? Probably 3 turns. Okay, then we have the Fire Elemental. Now, you should know that you can have only 1 pet for each character summoned. So I can have only 1 summoned for Scarlet. So I gotta pick and choose for either Spider and Fire Elemental. Now the good thing about the Fire Elemental, although it costs a lot, 7 action points, which pretty much means that I can't cast him right away, because I'm gonna have 6 action points at the start of the battle. But when I do summon him, he does have a ranged ability, which is pretty much the equivalent of a double flare. He shoots 2 flares at a single target. So that's pretty useful, and he can also knock down. He can also attack twice in a turn, similar to the spider. but he's really squishy, so he gets easily killed. So you gotta be really careful how you place him on the battlefield. You might want to place him somewhere far from the enemy, just so you can cast the double flare ability, and then if he dies it's alright, he will soak some damage for the party. But you gotta use him correctly, otherwise you might as well just use the spider, because he's a better tank than the fire elemental. He also has 2-turn cooldown, interestingly enough, which I didn't notice yet because I don't use him that often, really. I tend to use the spider more often than that. And we got the Staff of Magus, so uses 4 action points. Pretty much explanatory when it is based on your staff, so if you have a fire staff like this one, it will deal fire damage. If you have a water staff, it will deal water damage. So basically when you can't use anything else, you can use this and deal a little bit of damage, or you can try the combo just like I showed you. I guess it only works if it is a fire staff. I haven't tried with other types of staffs, but yeah, it should be only with fire staffs. Then I got blind, which is really useful as well. Now this spell, it blinds a target for 3 turns. It has pretty high chance, it has very low cooldown, it has very high range, so you can use it at pretty much any moment in a battle. Now you want to use this on enemies that are high threats, for example like bosses or enemies that deal a lot of damage to you, or archers or stuff like that. You can use this on them and they won't be able to attack you anymore, or at least they would have to get very close to you in order to attack you. So this is really useful. But then if they get close to you, you can use Malediction, which again debuffs them for 3 turns and causes them to be cursed, which means they will have 30% chance to hit against you, which is pretty big again if you're dealing with a big boss battle and he's hitting you for like 100 damage. You really want to use this instead of 45. 45 might be useful too, but this is gonna be really useful because yeah, you don't want to get hit by that 100 damage. And then I also have Bless. So this is useful for when there are enemies that have very high dodging chance. So for instance, if I have like 50% chance to hit with Roderick, I may want to use this on him and he will gain a 30%, so up to 80% chance to hit him. However, most of the time my enemies are either stunned, slowed or knocked down or flanked, and when enemies are flanked you get a 10% boost, and when they are knocked down or stunned you pretty much get 100% right off the bat, so you don't really need this. However, I can combo this. It also costs only 3 action points, so that's really useful. I can combo this with Medora here, who has a melee power stance, which decreases her chance to hit by 10%, but increases her damage by 25%. It also costs 1 more action point per swing, but it's really useful, especially if you can get that high hit chance. But that was it for Scarlet. Yep, she has 12 intelligence, she's pretty strong. Then we got Medora, which again is a knight like Roderick. She has pretty much the same spells like Roderick, and I use them just as I use them with Roderick. However, she has 2 different spells here. She has Helping Hand, which costs 3 action points, and the cooldown is 5 turns, which is kinda high, because this spell is pretty much useless most of the time. I did use it a couple of times. So it is help a knockdown friend back up or pat out a burning one. Now the thing is, patting out a burning one is pretty much useless because you'd rather just heal up. The burn doesn't really do that much damage anyway, but the knockdown status might be really useful to use against with this spell over here. So I've used it a couple of times to to remove the knockdown status from one of my companions. It's good that it has 3 action points cost, but it is on a 5 turn cooldown. It does have a 10 meter range, but I still wouldn't recommend it. I believe Cure Wounds is better, and in fact I was going to get Cure Wounds, and I think I will probably get it pretty soon, but I was unlucky and didn't find the spellbook anywhere.
Well, hello there.
So I might want to do that later. And this one I've already showed you, melee power stance. You can actually switch between melee power stance on or off anytime during battle. It costs 0 action points. So it's really useful actually, because if you already have 100% chance to hit someone, you might as well use this for the 25% damage. Now there's the drawback that it will cost you 1 extra action point. So for instance, one swing costs you 4 action points. So if you have 8 action points left, you should do 2 normal attacks, because if you activate this, you're gonna do 1 attack for 5 action points and you're gonna be left with 3 action points, which is not efficient. However, you can do other cool stuff, such as use this once for 5 action point swing, turn it off, and deal another 4 action point swing for a total of 9 action points used and a lot of damage. So that pretty much sums up the abilities for my characters here. I do use some other stuffs as well, some other things. Let's see if we can find them. I use invisibility potions, which are really useful. So if one guy is in really big trouble and he's gonna die next turn, you can just use the invisibility potion and he will be safe and sound. And it also lasts for 3 turns, so you can position him anywhere else on the map. Then I also use healing potion, of course. Intelligence potion, haven't really used this. The stats boost ones, I don't think they're all that great. It costs you 3 action points and they last for 3 turns. Another thing is the magical armor potions. These give plus 32 armor, so those are really useful. So it gives her, so she has 51 armor rating, but rather here has 43 armor rating, so using that almost doubles his armor rating and makes him impenetrable pretty much. So that's a really useful potion to have. Now I also use spell scrolls. Minor heals are always good to have when you want to heal a different ally, or when you want to heal yourself over 3 turns, because it's 38 HP per turn for 3 turns, so that's really useful. I do get some summon fire elemental or any other summons I can get my hands on, because again you can have 1 summon on each character, so you can have up to 4 companions or pets summoned that way. Also, air shield scroll is pretty useful. It pretty much oh, this is a different one. This gives me some air resistance, so it is useful to have some scrolls for resistance. However, I didn't go into Jahan. Yeah, I totally forgot about him. So on Jahan I have 2 water spells and 4 air spells. I got the Bitter Cold, which is not that useful. However, it costs only 3 action points, and if I can cast water, if I cast rain first and set wet status on everyone, I can cast chill and I will have increased chance of freezing them, and when they're frozen they pretty much can't act for like 2 turns. So this is a really strong crowd control ability. Then we have this, which is pretty much a air damaging ability. It also has a lower chance of setting blind status. Then we got the Staff of the Tempest, which is the basic ability for the staff. Then you've got Blitzbolt, which has a stunned chance. Let's try that again. A Blitzbolt, which has a chance to set stunned status. And this is really interesting because if we use rain, okay, so I use rain, these puddles of water will form here. Then I can use Blitz Bolt, and I'll pretty much create a static field, a electricity field that will stun anyone that runs in there. So they will permanently be stunned for 2 turns as long as they sit in that puddle of water, which gives me enough time to cast rain again and cast some more Blitz Lightning. So that's a really strong tactic that I've been using on the most difficult battles, on boss battles too, and has saved my ass every single time, because I just keep the highest threats locked down permanently, and then I can deal with other enemies, or I can just keep casting lightning bolt at them and they will eventually die from this alone. Then I got the minor heal, which is really useful, 42 vitality over 3 turns, has a very low cooldown, 2 turns, has a very high range, it uses fairly low action points, 4 action points, so I pretty much use that on cooldown every time my characters are damaged. Then I got teleportation. Now this is one of the most useful spells. It does have a 7 action point, but it has a 7 action points cost, but it deals a ton of damage, and you can also throw one guy on another, so you will cause damage to that guy as well. So you'll do damage to both enemies, and you can do other awesome stuff like throw them in fire or throw them in the oil, then use Scarlet here, use the small fireball and hit all of them, and they will also be set on fire. So that's really useful. You can also do stuff like this. Say there's a melee character here, I can teleport him all the way up top here, and he'll not be able to do anything anymore. He'll have to walk all the way across the stairs here in order to get back. So this is a really powerful spell. And the rain, we've already seen that. Now there was one other thing. What was it? Right, I want to talk about... So the armor rating is really good against physical damage dealers. Your high armor dudes will most of the time resist any type of enemy that deals physical damage. However, the ranged enemies, some of them are really strong, so I try to lock them down first, try to knock them down or stun them or anything like that. But then there are enemies that have elemental type attack. So there were these guys that had fire type attacks, which would deal a ton of damage to my characters, would deal insane amount of damage, up to the point that I wasn't able to tank them at all with either Roderick or Medora. So I needed to implement a different tactic against them. So what I do against elemental type enemies, well, the most obvious thing I can do is use a scroll, such as this one for instance, gives me fire resistance 25, or drink a potion that gives me fire resistance plus 15%. But as you can tell already by now, this is pretty rubbish. 15%, that's gonna give me like 30% resistance, which is pretty low, because I'm still gonna get hit by a lot. Now there are some scrolls that give like 50 resistance, but they're pretty rare. So I can't really depend on using scrolls every time. I can't depend every time on using 50% resistance scrolls, because yeah, they are very limited. So instead what I do is I try to lock down the highest threats. So I try to stun them, slow them with oil maybe, use teleportation, and keep them at bay for as long as possible and deal with the other threats that are manageable so that I don't get overwhelmed, and then I can deal with that guy. Or if he's low HP, I can just snipe him. The thing is, I rather prefer to target single enemies and kill them very fast, so I pick out the highest threat and kill it off right away. But of course that changes from fight to fight, but just to give you an insight on my thought process during
A good day to you.
during the most difficult battles I've had in the game so far. So that's my party guide for pre-level 7 party members. So leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.